2024 seems to be a year of goodbyes. Obviously, there's the case in one of the major American promotions of two all-time undoubted legends of the game, and possibly even greatest wrestler ever contenders hanging it up, but also the now familiar story of major indie names being snatched up by the big companies. And as guys like Brian Keith begin to take less indie dates and guys like Makabe hang it up for good, it'll be interesting to see who will fill their place as they move on to bigger things. There's one name specifically out there that has caught my eye recently though. One name that stood out in a sea of Osprey clones and springboard cutters to truly have the potential to grow into something exceptional and a talent that a company could build themselves around if given the opportunity and just a little more seasoning. My favorite discovery of 2023, a young up-and-coming wrestler by the name of Robert Martyr. I first saw Robert Martyr at an indie show held in a bar about an hour's walk from where I live, and immediately I knew there was something there. His willingness to take bumps in a sick way that's become increasingly rare, and his affection for a more grounded, dirty style spoke to me, and as I watched more of his matches to get a better feel of him, I got the itch to make this video. Full credit goes to Joseph Monticello for coming up with this format, and Squill of Wrestling with the Narrative, whose rewatching of the Josh Barnett 5-match primer directly gave me the inspiration to make this video and share with you all someone you may not have seen but hopefully will see a whole lot more soon. There's nothing more important in wrestling than supporting your local indies, and maybe like me, you'll be graced with the presence of one of the most promising talents of recent years. If you're new, welcome. I'm so happy to familiarize anyone and everyone with the work of the poisoned youth, Robert Martyr.
Having trouble trying to sleep.
You can walk all over me. Honestly, it's fucking embarrassing.
Time ticks by, still I try. No rest for cross-ups in my mind. Here we go.
Skill tree doesn't change the fact that I'm better, and I just haven't had the opportunity to show that I'm better.
I feel like light up the portion of my skin. Mouth is dry, face is red, fucked up and spun out in my head.
All you have left.
A major part of showing my admiration of Robert Martyr so much is this match with Makabe. Simply put, take away the head drops and sick bumps and distill him to his very essence. Martyr, at around 19 or 20 years of age here, can hang with one of the greatest of all time on the mat. No doubt that Makabe's experience and expertise does a lot to make Martyr look as great as he does here, but he never looks out of place against someone that far exceeds him in experience. Not only that, but the character work we see from Martyr is all his, and he delivers one of his best character performances as a smarmy heel. A young little asshole who you desperately await to be taught a lesson by Makabe, but keeps somehow getting the best of him. He does things like refuse the handshake and fish hook the mouth to show his intensity too. He's a confident heel, cocky even, but not cowardly. It reminds me very much of early Kenta performances. Whenever Makabe gets one up on him, you see him not react in fear of getting hurt, but more annoyance or frustration that in his mind he's being embarrassed. When he plays to and yells at the card, you get the sense of an insecurity in his character, so desperate to be perceived as legitimate and so scared to be perceived as a joke, he overcompensates with this cocky arrogance, but his desperation clearly shows when he does things like try to pull Makabe's hair to escape a hold. And it goes without saying that Makabe is as great as ever, especially when on top, getting the better of Martyr, never phoning in a performance and teasing him when Martyr has to use the ropes to break. And the great thing about this is that this isn't done just as jest or to make fun of his opponent or simply just to fill time. Makabe is actively trying to piss off Martyr, to throw him off his game so he's less focused and more emotional so Makabe can exploit him. And it does work, but unfortunately not in the way that Makabe expects it to. A game plan that backfired on the wrestling genius, as when Martyr backs Makabe into a corner, instead of a good clean break that a clear-headed Martyr would have been more likely to do, Martyr uses the opportunity to unleash a string of offense, leading to a knee drop on the back of Makabe's head to get advantage and firmly place him on top, allowing him to stomp on his arm and locking in a cocky omoplata variation he puts in whilst managing to simultaneously flex a double bicep pose atop a screaming Makabe. It enforces this idea that, say whatever you want about Martyr, he was able to do this to Daniel Makabe of all people, and unfortunately for Makabe, Martyr is not as clean or respectful on top as he was, bending his arm in gross angles and pounding his knee with strikes when locked in a hold, forcing Makabe to go to the ropes, firmly placing the veteran on the back foot. Martyr fully lives up to his stray moniker here, not being afraid to get dirty on the ground, less concerned with clean technical transitions, instead with a more grounded bullying of Makabe, pulling his legs out from under him and pulling at his nose and mouth furthermore. It can't help but give you as a viewer the sense of anger, as this kid thinks he's so much better than he is, but him being able to back that up makes it even more infuriating. It isn't until Makabe gives up trying to out-grapple him that he's able to take the advantage with suplexes and backbreakers, but it's Makabe's own pandering to the crowd that causes him to give up his injured arm to Martyr, underestimating him, which caused him to lose the advantage earlier. Does the same here, and Martyr is able to unleash a litany of strikes to the arm and lariats that give him the opportunity to hit his signature brain stew brainbuster on Makabe, nearly winning him the match. One thing that Makabe is good at, though, is adapting. He counters a powerbomb, fakes the leg, causing Martyr to go for it to give him the opening for a backslide, and when he sees the opportunity, he reaps it for all it's worth and throws a hell of a fastball punch, knocking Martyr out cold. but damaging his own hand in the process, which had already been damaged earlier by wrist locks and stomping by Martyr. And this caused his ability to go for the pinfall to be delayed, giving Martyr the time to barely slip his shoulder off the mat for a 2 count. Makabe tries to take advantage of the opportunity with a cattle mutilation, but it's in this that we see that Martyr is no joke. Even when firmly in the back end without any underhanded tactics, he's still able to escape it, and we see a more aggressive side of Makabe in response. Makabe blocks him from being able to escape the position, something the rabid Martyr doesn't even seem to be aware of, hell-bent on getting his lick in until it's too late. And it's only when Makabe stoops to his level and delivers a barrage of headbutts on the seated Martyr, unable to move, that Makabe is able to truly put Martyr in his place, delivering an exposed knee and even more ground and pound in the form of 12 to 6 elbows to make sure Martyr can't go anywhere, before Makabe finally locks in a gross, dirty, seated cattle mutilation to finally wrestle victory from Martyr, unconscious and trapped, causing the ref to call for the bell. Perhaps the outcome that everybody expected, but Makabe had to fight a lot harder to get that victory than anyone would have thought. Martyr pushed him to his breaking point, and it was only Makabe's snapping that was able to secure him the victory. It's a strong case for a young Martyr to show not only his credentials as a technical wrestler, but show off some nice, if basic, character work. He never looks out of place with Makabe and more than holds up to his end of the bargain, absorbing brutal strikes and gross holds. It shows at his very core, Martyr possesses a strong fundamental understanding of technical wrestling very early into his career, and not just technical wrestling, but wrestling in general. Someone to look out for sure. This is the best World of Sport match of the 2020s. And I've seen multiple matches for this project with actual World of Sport rules. This is the most logical, natural evolution of Robert Martyr from when we saw him last. The match is contested under pure rules, but the style of match that these guys wrestle, especially Huckabee, lends more directly to the World of Sport inspiration. The way he counters out of leg cravats and easily escapes everything Martyr attempts is very reminiscent of the Marty Joneses or Johnny Saints at his best, without running into Saints' more cartoonish tendencies. The body language, the physique, even the attire and appearance, everything about Huckabee was clearly meant to be wrestling on ITV on Saturday afternoons. Martyr, though, brings most of the beating heart into this match. Martyr here continues to play this insecure little shithead that he played in the match prior, desperate for attention from the pro Huckabee crowd, being slimy and dirty in his brief moments on top in the opening stretch, but almost entirely getting his ass schooled by Huckabee. Similar to Makabe in the last match, though, here we see Martyr resort to the first strikes of a match to transition into his heat segment, knocking Huckabee loopy with a closed fist, much like Makabe did to him. Martyr on top just knows how to be an asshole without resorting to obvious tactics to get heat from the crowd here. The way he smothers Travis on top with blows while technically well within the rules is such a great way to get the viewer angry at this subversion from the sportsmanship that Travis gave him while he was on top. It also looks sick as fuck. He's dirty and grimy with a point to prove. This aggression and overenthusiasm, though, does come to bite Martyr back, as when Huckabee pushes Martyr into the ropes to take his last rope break, it causes the hot-headed Martyr to attempt to respond in kind, only to back him into the referee and open up Huckabee for the chance to give Martyr a taste of his own medicine with a closed fist of his own to transition into his own comeback, which mostly consists of clinically and grotesquely debilitating Martyr's arm. And as they exchange blows into the final stretch, Martyr is able to take another thing from the Makabe match, where he is able to catch Huckabee as he goes low, like Makabe did to him, only this time with a much more straightforward knee to the face. As the two get desperate, Huckabee fails to catch Martyr's foot with a seatbelt pin, allowing Martyr to kick out and successfully implement a mousetrap pin for the victory. It's a sort of cruel irony and twist of fate that makes Martyr's victory sting all the more. The entire match, Huckabee was pristine and precise, perfect in his execution and technical ability, while Martyr was rash, dirty, and in the one moment where it mattered the most, Huckabee was the one who was imperfect and Martyr was the one who was on top of his game. It's not only a great match, but a perfect exhibition of Martyr's technical abilities and showcase for his own performance, as this time, even without him being in there with one of the greatest indie wrestlers of all time, he's able to thrive. Huckabee is no slouch, but Martyr is clearly the one bringing the beating heart into this match, and that makes it feel all the more special. A great hidden gem of 2022 and a showcase of two very underappreciated indie wrestlers. This is a very simple match in a very good way. This match just feels like classic Southern style wrestling, and it offers up a nice bit of diversity in Martyr's performance here, as for the first time in this video, we see him as a plucky, blue-eyed babyface as he faces one of the best wrestlers in the world today, any style Adam Priest. Priest is able to immediately get heat from the crowd, and you get the sense that Martyr is certainly a challenger that Priest is taking lightly. He even implements a move of his Southeast first rival Kevin Koo later to firmly show where his focus lies. It allows Martyr to get his early shine in through using basic fundamentals and technique like headlocks, arm drags, to get the early advantage over his more explosive opponent, who clearly wasn't expecting much of a challenge from the relative unknown in Robert Martyr at this point. The tides change when Adam Priest is able to take a figurative and literal low road when he cuts Martyr's legs out from under him, off the apron and onto the cement floor of the TWE arena. This leads to Priest's bread and butter in an extended heat segment, which mainly focuses on him attacking the compromised knee of Martyr, but Robert does an amazing job here adhering to the steamboat rule, always fighting back against Priest, even if he can't gain the advantage or change the tides. Throwing mean chops and forearms, but with the little bits of offense he's able to get in, he never undermines the knee work that Adam Priest is doing, collapsing to the mat when delivering chops to Priest in the corner, and wrenching back in agony when he's just using the leg to plant. There's a moment where Martyr returns to the fundamentals he started the match with, and it seemed to serve him, with the headlock and sunset flip, but Adam Priest is just quicker on the draw than Martyr at this state, and is able to cut him off with one of the damnedest lariats I've ever seen. Martyr is able to get a boot up and follow up with more strikes to transition into his comeback as he hits a powerbomb and he attempts to transition into a half crab, but he's unable to get the leverage he needs for it due to his injured knee, and Priest is able to take advantage of this, escaping the submission and a pile driver attempt, only to pop Martyr's knee out of place in one of the most disgusting spots I've ever seen, and nailing him with a DDT for a good measure to secure the win. While this isn't the best match of either man's career, it does serve to show Martyr's capabilities as a babyface in peril. In such an intimate environment as the TWE arena, crowd investment is crucial, and a very young Bobby Martyr is able to reel them in with his very realistic leg selling and straightforward offense. Priest is clearly the star of this match, but it shows Martyr's ability to fill any role he's needed in, and the result is a match that is very easy to watch and get hooked into. A great showcase for things to come. This match up to this point was the biggest match of Robert Martyr's career. At this point, JD Drake was coming off of perhaps the highlight of his career in his series of matches with Daniel Garcia, which could be argued is what launched Garcia into the success that he has today. At this point, JD Drake was operating on a whole nother level, and on this day, he found himself standing across from a 19-year-old kid with little to his name, and fully embraced the opportunity. While Martyr, who at this point is the youngest and most inexperienced, we'll see him in this video, isn't so outwardly shitty towards Drake as he was to Makabe, he's able to show a more simplified, perhaps subtler version of a little kid you just want to see get an ass whooping. While most wrestlers with sizes this disparate might take the obvious and perhaps easier route of doing the classic big guy, little guy, David versus Goliath routine, especially considering Martyr's age and experience, these two took a more creatively interesting and fulfilling route. There's something so inherently likable and relatable to JD Drake's character, and you can't help but want to see the large, strong man hit the small kid very, very hard, and JD Drake is happy to oblige. From the outset of this match, when the two are on equal ground and a level playing field, Martyr dies, and dies violently at that. The gross chops, the way he's just manhandled by Drake, you just can't help but get satisfaction and pleasure out of seeing this young kid get absolutely killed. It's only when Martyr employs cheaper tactics like escaping the ring from Drake and going after his noted by the commentary injured knee, where Martyr is able to swindle his way into getting the best of JD, chopping him down to the ground and absolutely smothering him on top, doing his best to keep it from being a fair exchange of holds on the mat, where inevitably, as we've seen, JD would kill him. Robert even tries to go for the count-out victory after booting JD's head against the ring post. It's despite this that Drake is able to shine. Inevitably, the young and cocky Martyr isn't able to keep his mouth shut, and this allows an opening for Drake to finally get into his comeback, enduring the chops and elbows only to land his signature body slam and Kakeshi headbutt to finally turn the tides back into his favor. What I love about Drake is where some wrestlers would drop their leg selling for the purpose of going through their comeback sequence or only acknowledge it when it serves them, JD Drake is the type of performer to always be aware of this sort of thing, stumbling out of an up and over and selling his injured knee, even if it didn't lead to a significant beat. It just happened because JD Drake's leg fucking hurts. There's this great moment where Martyr's able to trick JD and hit a crucifix bomb to finally give him the opportunity to hit the third and final lariat that floors Drake, and despite Martyr hitting JD with his best shot, JD Drake is still able to do what he's done throughout the entire match and just endure, brute forcing his way through the problem. But he soon realizes that brute force has not been enough to secure him the victory so far, and that potentially Martyr is a more thoughtful and challenging opponent than he expected. So JD learns to adapt and is able to beat Martyr at his own game by suckering him in for a chop, only to get the perfect opportunity to finish him off with Martyr's biggest weakness in this video so far, a DDT right on his head. This match is an interesting one with its brutal headbutts and chops, but at its core, it's a classic Southern style babyface who, despite his clearly superior ability, is kneecapped and taken advantage of by his smarter opponent and has to learn how to adapt to survive. Not only is it a great showcase of a 19-year-old Bobby Martyr, but one of JD's best matches in this role. A very thoughtful and interesting match from one of the best runs in indie history. Fuck, dude. This match in a word, is dirty. When it comes to this point, we see Martyr closer to who he is today. No longer being able to rest on being a rookie, now he is expected to go out there and prove himself with less benefit of the doubt. We see that concept manifested here in this match with indie veteran almost undersells it, one of the best wrestlers in the world today, and the workhorseman's other half, Anthony Henry. Straight and simple, Henry is a dick in this match, and it rules so hard. The way he oozes confidence, his nonchalant attitude towards his opponent, his facials, this right here is some fucking Tenryu shit. Knowing Martyr's idealization of Henry, as mentioned by commentary, makes it sting all the more when he beckons him to bring it on, unfazed and unimpressed, or when he turns his back from his opponent, not even giving him the time of day. This is something that came off in his heel work in DPW very well, but here it's at its all-time peak. Another thing to note about this match is the grappling. Johnny Saint and Steve Gray, this is not. The way they work through their wrist locks and escapes, there's always a clear sense of resistance and danger. It's never easy. Every inch they gain is earned, and every mistake has fatal consequences. There's a moment in which Martyr attempts what seems to be a backslide and fails to execute it, and instead of outing it as a botch, as most wrestlers would, Henry shamelessly uses it as an opportunity to take advantage and arrange shots upon him. That bloodlust, in turn, Martyr is able to counter as Henry loses his control and gives Martyr a chance to respond with a slap of his own, provoking the proverbial bear in Henry. But perhaps the most defining feature of this match is how gross it is to watch. Normal moments that seem mundane in most matches, like a simple leg sweep on the apron, feel that much more scarier and hard to watch. It's uncomfortable in a way a fight should be. In a landscape of pro wrestling where praised for its incredible sequences of two guys cycling through a pre-planned spot, when guys just hit each other really hard, it fucking rules. And perhaps the most uncomfortable moment of the match comes when both men are on the outside. When it seems Henry is going to pile drive or even worse, powerbomb Martyr onto the wood floor, which would fucking suck by itself, Henry rejects this idea and instead elects to ram Martyr's skull brain first into the ring post before awkwardly picking up Rob's half-limp body to powerbomb him on the apron for good measure. This man is dead, and Anthony Henry looks nothing but pleased with himself. This is sicko shit. This is Tenryu dropping Okada on his head. This is Nigel McGuinness speedrunning CTE. This is Jack Evans throwing himself from way too high in the air towards a concrete floor. This is shit we don't see anymore, or rarely, at least. Not for a big paycheck, but because pro wrestlers are sick in the head and they do this shit for the love of the game. One might imagine doing such a gross spot would make it hard to top it as the rest of the match goes on, and while it never gets quite as gross, the match far from dies here, as this is when Henry really dials it to 11, bragging about his own financial gain.
Oh, wow, Lord!
While attempting to cripple and end any hopes of his opponents in the future. There's this moment I love where, as Henry is brutalizing Martyr, the crowd slowly switches from chanting Henry to chanting Martyr.
Pleasure that Anthony Henry is taking from the damage he's inflicting. He looks almost amused by the pain that Robert Martyr is in.
This is unlike the JD Drake match in that, as Martyr continues to fight in the face of certain defeat and does so honorably, one can't help but feel a connection with him. And it's when Martyr is on the floor, kneeling, that Henry continues to taunt him, where he proclaims to be testing him as he pelts him with kicks. But once again, like Makabe learned the hard way, Anthony Henry goes wrong in lighting a fire under Martyr, giving him the fuel to endure the gross kicks he's throwing at him, and he's able to begin to change the tides with several bombs thrown at Henry. And as he locks in a half crab, we finally get to see the facade of Anthony Henry drop. This veteran of the game badass is the first and only person who has to resort to a rope break, desperately trying to escape the clutches from Martyr. And we see that this is another bona fide legend that Martyr is able to push to their limits. Martyr, in the end, is able to endure a pile driver from Henry, and it's only its cradle variant preceded by some frankly grotesque kicks to not his head but his fucking face that he eventually falls victim to his opponent. It's afterwards that we see the reflection from Anthony Henry, where he's able to admit he only barely won, and we see him publicly endorse Robert Martyr. And in his emotional address to the crowd, the words ring so much truer when the marks from battle are still scorched across his face. A test passed with flying colors, I'd say, that it'd be hard for me to forget the name.
Robert fucking Martyr.
Now that I've spent 3 months making this video, I feel somewhat of an expert in most things Robert Martyr. The last 2 matches can't help but feel like the most important in his career, with a higher sense of weight, and I was actually able to talk with Martyr about them. And he said, "I was a nobody from Florida, complete obscurity, wrestling for $10, and I'll be everything I'm trying to escape from," especially in that JD Drake and Anthony Henry match. Keep in mind, I was 20 years old in that JD Drake match. It was in the middle of the pandemic. I was a no one going against someone I watched tear down the house every night when I was doing ring crew for Evolve. That and the Anthony Henry match was the epitome of sink or swim. There's a trend of those 2 matches being my most violent, and that's the reason. When it comes to Martyr as a talent, I think it's obvious what he brings to the table. From a fan's perspective, it does feel like he exists in this stage of career where he is no longer considered a rookie, and the opportunities don't come as swiftly as they did before. Whilst in 2023, which feels like a all-time year for him, he had the opportunity to mix it up with guys like Thatcher, Suzuki, Blackwood, Garcia, to name a few. Now he's in a state of his career where he is more times than not the one trusted to be the more reliable wrestler in the match. And in some instances, this has led to good matches, like his match with Drake Quan at DOA, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that he's not quite on the level of some of his opponents from the aforementioned list yet. Despite the criticisms, though, Martyr has proved to be a wrestler brimming with not only potential, but raw talent. There are several of great matches he's had, one of which on this very list, where I do not think he is the lesser of the 2 performers in the ring, and he has a mind about him that on a fundamental level just gets it in a way less and less people do these days. Whether it's watching him exchange holds on the mat with the Moriarty, or getting dropped on his dome by Big Beef, I know I personally won't be able to forget the name of the Poison Youth, Robert Martyr, and you shouldn't either. Thank you to anybody who's stuck around for this video. And thank you for being so patient for it to come out. This video has taken way longer than I thought I would. I watched over 100 matches for this project. I think I lost count, but I've watched so many matches. Not time I'd say was wasted. I frankly quite enjoy Robert Martyr as a wrestler, and I really hope that this video was able to show an honest view of how I feel about him. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'm almost at 100 subscribers, so if you're seeing this and you're not subscribed, it would be cool to get there. But also just thank you for waiting. I have a couple of ideas for videos I might want to do next, but not quite landed on one yet. Probably gonna take some time to not worry about it after I am done with this one. But yeah, thank you to anyone watching this video. Thank you to Joseph Montesilio for giving me a shout out on a stream. Great stream, by the way. If you aren't following him on Twitch, probably should. But yeah, just thank you in general. Thank you, Robert Martyr, especially for taking the time out of your day just to talk to me. It was originally planned to try to get on a call with him, but in the end, with a entire job, I didn't really have enough time in my life to do that. I don't know how some of these guys do. It's insane. But still, he took the time out of his day to text me, to DM me on, and it's just very kind, and outside of being a very good wrestler, just a really cool dude. Yeah, thank you. I'll see you whenever I eventually get another one of these out.